He was not like other people having many friends. He had one great friend.
Oh, I smelled your perfume. How are you?
But the mafia brutally massacred his best friend. This hurt and anguished him, but instead of whining, he set on a path for vengeance. Mafia couldn't even forecast the brutality that he was about to choose to paint their deaths on that particular day. Welcome back to Paramount Recaps. I don't have many subscribers, but your single comment is a ray of hope to motivate me.
Open your mouth.
The movie kicks off with Robert McCall, a middle-aged man who looks like a Muslim, sitting on a train headed to Istanbul, Turkey. He's reading a book, but his attention shifts to a nearby family, a father, mother, and their young daughter. The father soon leaves for another carriage, and Robert quietly follows him to the food cart. When Robert catches up to the man, they start chatting. The man asks Robert why he's in Turkey, and Robert calmly explains that he's looking for a Turkish man who married an American woman and had a daughter. Robert reveals that the man he's after is abusive, having hurt his wife and taken their daughter to Turkey against her will. The man suddenly realizes that Robert is talking about him. He quickly orders his men, who are on the train, to attack Robert. But Robert isn't just any ordinary guy. He's a former US Marine with serious skills. As the men approach, Robert grabs a teapot and a cup, swiftly using them as weapons. He takes down each of the men one by one, leaving them all defeated in no time. Robert returns to the man he's after, sits down, and calmly fixes his sleeves before giving the man a choice: either feel regular pain or extreme pain. The scene then shifts to Robert arriving in a city, now looking completely different. He's ditched the beard and white clothes, now dressed more casually as he works as a taxi driver. He picks up an old man from an office building who urgently tells him to drive off quickly. Meanwhile, in Brussels, Belgium, a man named Calbert comes home from work, only to find his wife in the dining room, terrified and covered in bruises. Before he can react, several men appear, and one of them shoots his wife right in front of him. Calbert is also brutally murdered by these men, who were clearly hired to kill them both. Back to Robert. He's still doing his thing as a taxi driver. That night, he gets a call to pick up a woman who seems to be in pain. He takes her back to her apartment, but later returns to confront the man who ordered the ride. Suspecting that he and his friends are the ones who hurt her, Robert's suspicions are correct, and in less than 30 seconds, he beats and kills everyone in the room. After the fight, Robert goes back to his apartment and is surprised to find his old friend Susan waiting for him. They hug, happy to see each other after a long time. Susan is a top CIA agent, currently deep into investigating a couple's murder with her colleague, Dave. The next day, Susan, Dave, and their team investigate the crime scene at Calbert's house. That night, Susan returns to her hotel room, but she's ambushed by two men who brutally attack her. Despite fighting back, Susan is overpowered and left helpless. Meanwhile, Robert is chatting with a young boy painting a wall when he gets a call from Brian, Susan's husband. Brian delivers the shocking news that Susan has been killed by an unknown assailant in her Belgian hotel room. Devastated, Robert immediately heads to Washington, D.C. to meet Brian and learn what happened. In Belgium, the two men who killed Susan are relaxing when their phone rings. One answers it, but an explosion suddenly goes off, killing them both. It turns out the explosion was set off by the same gang that killed Calbert and his wife. Robert starts digging into Susan's death, going through hotel CCTV footage from the night of the murder. He meets with Dave in a park, explaining that something's off with the footage. It looks like Susan's death was planned. Robert suspects that Susan's murder is connected to the case she was working on. Robert continues investigating the files from the couple's murder case, trying to piece together what happened. He even imagines himself at the scene to figure out all the possibility. He tells Dave that the killer was likely left-handed, and he believes Susan knew who the murderer was, which led to her being killed. The next day, while driving as a taxi driver, Robert picks up a suspicious passenger. During the ride, the man suddenly attacks Robert with a knife, but Robert's quick on his feet. He swerves the car wildly, causing the man to lose his balance and fail in his attack. Robert didn't hesitate. He elbowed the guy in the face multiple times, overpowering him quickly and killing him. Afterward, he took the man's phone for further investigation, then set his taxi and the man's body on fire to wipe away any evidence. The following day, Robert headed over to Dave's place to fill him in on what had gone down. He explained how a guy had tried to kill him, and he was pretty sure that the hit was ordered by the same people who took out Susan. Robert mentioned that he'd gone through the dead guy's phone and found the number of the main culprit. To their surprise, when Robert dialed the number, Dave's phone started ringing. It turns out Dave was the mastermind behind Calbert's murder, his wife's death, and even Susan's killing. He didn't want anyone to find out he was pulling the strings, so he made sure to eliminate all loose ends, including Susan. Robert, already suspecting Dave, had only been playing it cool until now. He knew Dave was behind everything, but wanted to give him a chance to explain himself. Dave didn't offer much of an explanation, though, and instead brought Robert to meet the other 3 guys involved in the killing. Before leaving, Robert warned them all that he'd be back to take them out one by one. The next day, Dave and his crew decided to go after Brian, Susan's husband, planning to kill him too, but Robert had anticipated their move and already whisked Brian away to a safe spot. Meanwhile, Miles, a young artist, was busy painting the walls of Robert's house when Dave and his gang arrived, guns ready, aiming to kill Robert. Sensing danger, Miles panicked and quickly called Robert. Robert, who was already on his way home, activated the security cameras via his phone and instructed Miles to hide in a secret room behind a bookshelf. Once hidden, Miles could see Dave and his crew through a 2-way mirror in the secret room. When Dave aimed his gun at the mirror, Robert suddenly called him, saying he was in a place Dave would recognize. Thinking Robert was at a different location, Dave and his men quickly left the house. Believing it was safe, Miles tried to sneak out of his hiding spot, but unfortunately, Dave and his gang were still lurking. Dave caught sight of Miles and aimed his gun at him. Meanwhile, Robert was driving to a city he once called home, now evacuated because of an approaching storm. Dave and his crew soon arrived in the same city, barging in and killing a policeman stationed there. They reached an empty house that used to belong to Robert, armed to the teeth and ready to face him. Knowing he was a battlefield expert, despite searching every room and even breaking into the neighboring houses, they couldn't find Robert. Frustrated, Dave decided to head up to a tall building to get a better view and direct his men. The others split up, combing through the area to track down Robert. But Robert, being a former top-notch military operative, had already prepared for this. He had carefully planned his moves, predicting every scenario as he always did in combat. Robert began executing his plan, taking out Dave's men one by one. First, he targeted Kovac, shooting an arrow straight into his head, killing him instantly. Next, Robert stealthily followed another man, Ari, and stabbed him repeatedly with a knife, ensuring he was dead. With 2 down, Robert then turned his attention to Risnik, using a grenade to finish him off in a deadly explosion. Now, all that was left was Dave. Robert was driven by the desire to avenge his friend Susan's death. Dave, meanwhile, had taken Miles hostage, almost killing him. But Robert wasn't far behind. He shot the tires of Dave's car, causing Dave's shot to miss. As Dave tried to locate Robert, he was shocked to find Robert already standing right in front of him. The 2 men engaged in a brutal fight, each using every ounce of skill they had. After a long and intense battle, Robert finally overpowered Dave and put an end to his evil deeds. With the fight over, Robert pulled Miles out of the car's trunk and took him back to his house, making sure he was safe. Robert lingered in the house for a while, reflecting on his past as he looked at a photo of his late wife. The film wraps up with a scene showing Miles as an art student. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel out. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an update. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below with your suggestions for future videos, any questions you have, or just to say hi. Your feedback is super important to us and helps us create better content for you. Also, feel free to share this video with your friends, family, and on social media. It really makes a big difference and helps our community grow. You can follow us on Insert your social media handles for more updates and behind-the-scenes content. Thanks again for your support, and we'll see you in the next video.